In a forgotten corner of the world, far away from cities and progress, there was a village where time seemed frozen. Here, traditions were not just respected, they were feared. Customs passed down through generations were followed blindly, even when they destroyed innocent lives. Among these dark traditions was the practice of marrying off young girls, some barely able to read or write, to men decades older. In this village, a young girl named Noor lived with her family in a small mud house at the edge of the settlement. Noor had big brown eyes full of wonder and a laugh that could melt any heart. She spent her days chasing goats, playing with handmade dolls, and dreaming about colorful bangles and sweets, not knowing the cruelty that awaited her. Noor's family was poor. Her father struggled to find work, and her mother often went to bed hungry to feed the children. When a wealthy man from a neighboring village approached them with a marriage proposal, it was seen as a way out of their misery. He promised money, gifts, and a better life for Noor. Under pressure from neighbors and elders, Noor's father agreed. It didn't matter that Noor was only 8 years old. It didn't matter that she clutched her mother's dress tightly when she overheard talks of marriage, her small heart pounding with fear. In their world, tradition was stronger than the cries of a child. The wedding was arranged quickly. Villagers gathered with excitement, treating it like a festival. Bright fabrics decorated the homes, and drums echoed into the night. Noor was bathed, perfumed, and dressed in heavy garments that weighed her tiny body down. Thick gold jewelry hung around her neck and wrists, and dark kohl lined her eyes to make her look older, hiding the trembling little girl within. The women sang songs of joy, while Noor sat quietly, numb and confused, not fully understanding what was happening to her. To her, it was a strange, scary game where everyone wore masks of happiness, while she felt only dread. As the sun set and the stars blinked into the sky, the ceremonies continued. Food was shared, and laughter filled the air, but no one noticed the way Noor's eyes darted around, searching for a familiar face, a hand to hold, a way out. When it was time, she was led into a dimly lit room prepared for the wedding night. The door closed behind her with a heavy sound that echoed deep inside her chest. In that moment, all the lights and laughter outside faded away, and Noor's world was swallowed by silence and fear. The villagers celebrated late into the night, never questioning what was happening behind that closed door. They called it tradition, destiny, God's will. They didn't see the horror unfolding, or maybe they chose not to. Noor's screams were muffled by the thick desert air, carried away by the winds that swept through the village. By morning, the celebration had turned into whispers. Something had gone wrong, something terrible. But no one dared to speak the truth aloud. Noor's fate had been sealed the moment she became a bride. The nightmare had only just begun. Night had settled heavily over the village, but inside the tiny house where Noor had been taken, darkness meant more than the absence of light. The small room was barely furnished, with only a worn-out mattress and a single candle flickering weakly in the corner. Outside, the last of the wedding songs faded into silence. Noor sat motionless, her heavy bridal clothes digging into her skin, her hands trembling on her lap. The door creaked open, and the man who now called himself her husband entered. Noor was too young to understand what was expected of her, but the fear in her heart screamed louder than any words could have. What followed in that room was something no child should ever endure. The brutal violence left Noor's tiny body broken, her spirit shattered beyond repair. The night stretched on endlessly, each moment heavier than the last. The walls that had witnessed generations of similar tragedies now absorbed Noor's silent cries. No one came to help. No one dared. In the village, what happened between husband and wife was considered sacred, even when it was unspeakably cruel. Hours later, Noor stopped moving. Her small body, overwhelmed by pain and trauma, simply gave up. She lay motionless, her bridal dress torn and stained, her tiny face frozen in fear. By the time the man realized what he had done, it was too late. Panic set in, but not for Noor's life. It was fear of shame, fear of punishment, fear of losing honor in a place where reputation meant everything. He wrapped her in a sheet and left the room, claiming to the few family members awake that Noor had suddenly fallen ill. At dawn, the first rays of sun uncovered the horror. Noor's lifeless body was brought out in secret, hidden from the curious eyes of the villagers. An old midwife was called to the house under the pretense of helping with a sick child. But when she saw the truth, her face turned pale. She tried to speak, but the heavy hands of Noor's husband's family silenced her quickly. They threatened her, forcing her to declare that Noor had died of a sudden sickness, some curse that had struck on her wedding night. Whispers began to spread like wildfire through the village. Some claimed Noor was cursed. Others said she had been too fragile for marriage. No one dared suggest the real reason. Fear held everyone's tongue, and the weight of tradition crushed any sense of justice that might have stirred in their hearts. Noor was buried hastily at the edge of the village, her grave unmarked, her name barely spoken again. The man who took her life did not face any consequences. Instead, he stayed hidden for several days, protected by powerful relatives who pulled strings behind the scenes. He was not seen mourning. There was no guilt on his face, no apology offered to Noor's grieving mother. In the silence that followed Noor's death, the village went back to life as if nothing had happened. But beneath that silence, anger and sorrow were beginning to fester, and a storm was silently brewing that would soon consume them all. Layla, Noor's mother, was drowning in silent grief. The world around her demanded that she move on, that she forget the daughter she had lost so brutally. In the days following Noor's death, neighbors visited with dry words of comfort, offering cold food and empty prayers. But no one spoke about what truly happened. No one dared mention the blood, the bruises, the broken little body that had been hidden away in the dead of night. Layla saw the truth in their eyes. They all knew, and yet they chose silence. Inside her small home, Layla clutched Noor's torn bridal dress close to her chest, feeling the faint scent of her daughter still lingering in the fabric. Each day, she sat staring at the door, half hoping her little girl would come running in, barefoot and smiling, asking for sweets or telling stories about the goats. But the door remained closed. The world remained cold. Anguish slowly hardened into something sharper inside her, a deep, burning determination that Noor's death would not be buried with her. Layla knew she could not fight openly. In the village, women who questioned men were branded troublemakers. Families who rebelled faced exile or worse. But Layla was no longer afraid of losing her home or her life. She had already lost everything that mattered. Quietly, she began gathering what little evidence she could find. She hid Noor's blood-stained scarf beneath the floorboards. She bribed the midwife, slipping her coins saved over years of hardship, to secretly write a statement about what she had witnessed. It wasn't much, but it was enough to begin a fight no one else dared to start. Through whispers and secret meetings, Layla reached out to her distant cousin in the city, a man named Karim, who had once defied the village elders by leaving for an education. Karim had contacts, people who hated the old traditions just as much as he did. One of those contacts was a journalist known for exposing dark secrets in forgotten corners of the country. When Layla's message finally reached him, it was simple. A girl, only 8 years old, murdered on her wedding night. No justice, no outrage, no one speaking her name. The journalist was intrigued. He arranged a meeting far from the village, in an abandoned field where no prying eyes could see. Layla risked everything to get there, traveling at night, shrouded in fear. She carried Noor's scarf, the midwife's statement, and a photograph taken in secret by a sympathetic nurse who had seen Noor's broken body. Her hands shook as she handed over the evidence, her heart pounding, but she did not turn back. Together they built a plan to tell Noor's story to the world. Layla imagined justice coming like a flood, washing away the years of cruelty and silence. But deep in her heart, she also knew that in a village where silence was survival, her actions would not be forgiven. Danger was coming, faster and closer than she could ever have feared. The first signs of danger came quietly. At first, it was just the feeling of being watched. Strangers lingered near Layla's home, pretending to fix carts or sell goods, but their eyes followed her every move. Some nights, she heard footsteps outside her door, stopping just beyond the flickering edge of her oil lamp's light. The villagers who had once shared meals with her now crossed the street to avoid her. Mothers pulled their children away when she passed. It wasn't anger she saw in their faces. It was fear. They knew what she had done by reaching out to the world beyond the village. They knew the price she would have to pay. Threats came next, written on scraps of paper and slipped under her door. They warned her to stay silent, to stop poisoning the village with lies. If she didn't, there would be consequences. At first, Layla ignored them. She clung to the belief that justice would protect her. But the threats soon turned violent. Her chickens were slaughtered in the night, their blood smeared across her doorstep. Stones were thrown through her windows. Yet she stayed, stubborn and unbending, fueled by the memory of Noor's helpless face. One night, when the moon was hidden behind thick clouds, the worst happened. As Layla and her children slept huddled together, fire broke out. Flames roared through the house like a beast unleashed, devouring everything in its path. Smoke filled the rooms, choking the children awake. Layla grabbed them, screaming for them to run. But the fire was too fast. In the chaos, 2 of her sons, barely more than teenagers, were trapped inside. Their cries echoed into the night, before silence swallowed them whole. By the time the fire was put out, nothing remained of Layla's home but ashes and grief. The villagers stood at a distance, whispering but offering no help. Some pitied her, others blamed her, but none dared to speak aloud. Layla sat among the ruins, cradling the only 2 surviving children, numb with sorrow. She had lost Noor to tradition, and now 2 sons to revenge. But even in her devastation, Layla's spirit did not break. The fire had taken everything she owned, but it could not take away the truth she carried. She met with the journalist once again, her face hollow but her voice steady. She told him everything, holding nothing back. The journalist, seeing the depth of her pain and courage, moved. Faster. He leaked Noor's story to the world, posting photos, statements, and the chilling details of her death on social media. Within hours, outrage exploded across the country. People who had never heard of the village now demanded justice for Noor. Television channels picked up the story. Human rights groups called for immediate action. The quiet village that had hidden behind its traditions for centuries suddenly found itself exposed under a blinding, unforgiving light. Layla had started a fire of her own, one that could not be put out. But in the shadows of the village, men with old power and deeper hatred began plotting their next move. The days that followed were like a storm tearing through the village. News vans rolled in, their antennas piercing the sky. Reporters knocked on doors, flashing cameras in the faces of people who had lived hidden lives for generations. Officials from the city arrived too, forced to act by the pressure of a nation now watching every move. They questioned the elders, combed through records, and pulled aside anyone who might know the truth about Noor. The village, once so proud of its customs, now cowered in shame under the eyes of the world. The man who had married Noor and brutally ended her life was arrested after days of hiding. Dragged out from a distant relative's home, he wore no expression as he was taken away. His powerful family tried to shield him, bribing officers and spinning tales of innocence. But this time, it wasn't enough. The weight of public anger was too heavy. Crowds gathered outside the police station, chanting Noor's name. They demanded a trial, demanded punishment that would match the horror she had endured. But the danger had not passed for Layla. The men who once ruled the village, with silent fear, were enraged by her betrayal. To them, it wasn't just about Noor anymore. It was about pride, honor, and vengeance. They saw Layla as the spark that had burned down their world, and they wanted her silenced forever. Late one night, just days after the arrest, a group of masked men broke into the home where Layla was staying with her surviving children. Armed with sticks and blades, they stormed through the small house, smashing furniture, searching for her. Layla managed to escape through a back window, clutching her children's hands in the darkness. They ran through the fields, barefoot and bleeding, guided only by the faint light of the stars. Somewhere deep inside, Layla knew she could never return. The village was lost to her. The only choice left was to vanish before the next attack came. With help from the journalist and human rights workers, she and her children were moved to a safe house in the city, hidden away under new names. Noor's case went to trial months later. In a courtroom packed with cameras and activists, evidence was laid bare. The midwife's statement, the photographs, the bruises that spoke louder than any witness. The man who had destroyed Noor's life showed no remorse. He stared coldly as the charges were read, but the verdict was swift. Guilty. Sentenced to life in prison, stripped of the protections that once made him untouchable. Layla listened to the verdict from her hiding place, tears slipping silently down her face. Justice, long denied, had finally arrived, but it came at a price she could never recover. Noor's smile, her laughter, her tiny footsteps running across the dusty yard. They were memories now, stitched into Layla's soul like scars. Yet amid the loss and sorrow, one truth remained unshaken. Noor's story had been heard. Her name would never be forgotten. And somewhere deep in the broken heart of a mother, hope flickered back to life. Would you also like me to suggest a dramatic closing narration for the YouTube video based on this story? It would tie everything together beautifully.